So I want to do a quick guided example with you guys on externalities. And so in this first example, we're going to have a positive externality, which is where there's basically an extra benefit for society from an activity that society really has nothing to do with. So in this case, Phoebe is going to harvest and sell honey from her bees. And her bees, her next door neighbor, is an apple orchard. And so her bees go pollinate the apple orchard, and no payments are made from the apple orchard to Phoebe. So basically the orchard is getting this extra benefit from the activity of Phoebe harvesting and selling honey for her bees. The bees provide a free service to the local farmers. Basically she's giving away this service. And so Phoebe's going to maximize her profits where her private costs are equal to her private benefits. But what happens is the social costs are actually less than the social benefit. So what's going on here is that the social benefit is greater than the private benefit. But Phoebe doesn't care about the extra social benefit. She only cares about her private benefit. So she's going to equate private costs and private benefits. But from society's perspective, we want to equate private costs and social benefits. So the result is that in equilibrium, basically she produces too few bees relative to the social optimum. So now let's look at another scenario. Now instead of Phoebe's neighbors being an apple orchard, her next door neighbor is going to be an elementary school. And a nursing home. And so now she's imposing a cost on her neighbors instead of giving a benefit to her neighbors. And so these bees are a nuisance. Phoebe is not paying any of the costs of the bee stings. And so the private costs in this case are equal to the private benefits, but the social cost is greater than the social benefit. So again, Phoebe's going to produce and maximize her profits where her private cost is equal to her private benefit. But in this case, the social cost is greater than the private cost. So the result is she produces too many bees in equilibrium relative to the social optimum. So this is what it looks like in a graph. If there was no external cost, her private cost and social cost would be the same. That's this line here. And this would be her private benefit and social benefit, and those would be the same. But if we have an external cost, what happens is the social cost is higher than the private cost. And so Phoebe's going to equate her equilibrium here, where private cost meets private benefit. But what she should be doing is thinking about where the social cost meets the social benefit. So this right here is actually the socially efficient equilibrium. And so relative to the socially efficient, we see that she's going to produce 12,000 tons of honey a year, when what actually is efficient is 8,000 tons. So we overproduce when we have a negative externality. And so that creates deadweight loss. And this triangle here is the deadweight loss from a negative externality. And notice the triangle kind of faces the opposite direction from what it normally faces. And that's because every other time we've done deadweight loss, we've produced too little of the good. But in this case, we're actually producing too much. And so that's why the triangle is kind of reversed. So make sure you pay attention to this. This is the deadweight loss from a negative externality. This is what's going to be produced in equilibrium, 12,000 tons at 1.3. And what's socially efficient is 8,000 tons at $2. So if we had a positive externality, in this case now we have extra benefit. And so as you see here, this is the social benefit curve, and below it is the private benefit. So this was when her neighbor was the apple orchard. So she's going to equate private costs and private benefits, but she should be thinking about the extra benefit she's giving her neighbor. And so the socially efficient outcome would actually be to produce more honey. And so we get deadweight loss in this case too. Now you see the triangle looks normal, right? And so because in this case we're underproducing the good, or we're not producing as much as we should, and so we're getting this normal shaped triangle for deadweight loss. And so we have deadweight loss with positive externalities, and we have deadweight loss with negative externalities.